Hello and welcome to GoodWe Quick Start Training Program. I am Sandra Herrera, Technical Sales at GoodWe US. This training was designed for installers only to get you through the installation, wiring, and commissioning best practices of the GoodWe AES Hybrid Residential Storage Inverter. In today's agenda, we will cover all of the options for after-sales support, quick overview of the GoodWe UL version products, then installation best practices and commissioning. Let's start with how to contact GoodWe in case you have a technical question during or after the installation. We have several options for installers to contact our after-sales support. First is our L1 support number at 888-418-0775. You can also email us at service.us@goodwe.com or go directly to our US version of our website and click on Online Support and complete the online form. This will automatically generate a ticket and our US-based team will support. Our headquarters for GoodWe US is in Denver, Colorado. Here we have our technology center, which includes product testing lab. We also house our L2 support team and RMA center. In the unlikely event you have a product issue and we need to replace the product, we can handle it from Denver. Additionally, this facility has our business team office, product management, and training facility. Now I will go over our UL version products at a high level. If you're interested in learning more about these products, please contact GoodWe Sales. This is our newest residential string inverter, MS US series, with sizes from 5 kW to 11.4 kW. The 5 and the 6 kW have 2 MPPTs and the larger versions have 3 MPPTs. You can only connect one string of modules per MPPT, which has a maximum input current of 16 amps. The inverter has a wide voltage range with a startup of 80 volts and an MPPT window upper range of 500 volts DC. It has a built-in arc fault and rapid shutdown transmitter. The ESUS is one of our next generation residential storage inverter. This one is a DC couple. The smaller models have 2 MPPTs and the larger has 4 MPPTs. The inverters range from 5 kW to 11.4 kW. Oversizing is allowed in all of our inverters. However, the primary rule is that the string doesn't exceed the maximum voltage in short circuit current. In the storage family, we also have an AC couple version, which is our SBP.US. Both of these inverters are compatible with our GoodWe Lynx battery and the LG Prime battery. The ABD and MPD are microgrid interconnection devices. These are required for our new storage inverters for backup function. ABD and MPD come with revenue grade meter and CTs included pre-installed from the factory. Lynx batteries are modular and expandable from a 9.6 kWh to 19.2 kWh. This product ships in sections, with each module weighing about 86 pounds. This is to facilitate the installation because each module is much easier to manage than the full rack that can weigh up to 500 pounds. A 50 amp DC breaker is already included in the PCU. The battery was designed to be floor standing, outdoor rated. However, it doesn't have to be immediately underneath the inverter. Because of the battery series connection interface design, it is not possible to cross the polarity of each module. There are no wires between the modules during the installation. Once the modules are all in place, the last part is the PCU, which will automatically detect the capacity of the stack. Our smart meter is included on AES, and we recommend that you install the CTs for load monitoring or power limiting. Now, installation best practices for AES and ASB. The differences between these two inverters are mostly on the system architecture, with AES being DC coupled and ASB AC coupled. So beyond this point, I will speak in general terms that are applicable for both models. If there is a difference, I will highlight it. Also, a reminder that this training assumes that you are a licensed solar installer. I will only cover specifics to the GoodWe inverter. You will need to follow all of your local and electrical code as applicable. Although string sizing isn't part of the installation and commissioning, I do want to point out the different tools available for the design. We recommend that you always check the maximum string sizing with our EZDesigner to ensure that the inverter will operate at peak efficiency during the range of temperatures of the site. Note that the MPPT voltage range of this model, you need to design the system to ensure you are targeting the maximum voltage and minimum within this range. Outside the MPPT voltage range, the inverter is not at its peak efficiency. In addition to our EZDesigner, we also work with most of the modeling tools such as OpenSolar and others. As a first step, we recommend to take a picture of the label on the box and directly on the inverter. You will need the information for commissioning later. Also, in case you have any questions for support, you will need to have the serial number. I want to highlight a few things from the box. The Wi-Fi dongle or COM module needs to be installed to start the commissioning. The small screwdriver included will help you lift the spring on the wiring terminal to insert the PV and AC wire. Lastly, the PV and AC wire terminals, which I will go into more detail on the next slide. Now I want to highlight the importance of using the DC and AC wire terminals included in the box with the inverter. Over the years, we have learned that a number of the nuisance AFCIs have been due to improper installation of the PV wire to the inverter PV input terminal. Please make sure to crimp the wire and to use the wire terminals. The wire terminals should be properly crimped based on the size wire. We recommend a 12 gauge copper for the PV connection. Let's look at the selection of the wall for installation of the inverter. The AES is NEMA type 4X or IP66 rated, so it can be installed outside. Most of our installations are on an external wall near the utility meter. First, evaluate the selected site. Although the inverter doesn't have an external fan for cooling, the back of the inverter has heat sinks, which should have natural air ventilation, so make sure not to block the natural air around the inverter. Use the included cardboard template to mark for the holes for mounting the inverter hanger plate. Also make sure to select the correct hardware for the type of wall and the weight of the inverter. This inverter can weigh up to 70 pounds. Before we jump in depth of the installation, let me give you a general orientation of the inverter. First, note that you only need to open the bottom half of the enclosure. This part is the wiring compartment. It isn't necessary or recommended that you open the upper part of the inverter. The top half is the power electronics, and you could break the weather seal. The only access point is the lower part or wiring compartment. On the outside left, you see the DC switch, which in this photo is showing a padlock. This is to comply with the lockout tagout. On the right side, you have the AC bypass switch, allowing the system to be put in bypass in case you need to power off the inverter but continue to provide utility grid to the backup loads. The inverter by default is in the normal position. From the top, we have the built-in meter as well as the rapid shutdown transmitter. I'll go into a little more detail on this later. Next, you see this plastic cover. For normal installations, it isn't necessary for you to remove the cover. This cover is also very helpful to assist you with the right positioning of the electrical and communication wires because it labels each connection. The last item I want to touch here is the Wi-Fi module. It is included in the box with the inverter, but it must be installed. This is one of the major differences between AES and ABP. Because ABP is AC coupled, it will not have an array connection. These instructions are only for AES. Before starting the array connection, make sure the DC switch is in the off position. You are connecting each string directly to the inverter. There are no fuses. The two smaller versions, the 5 and the 6, have 2 MPPTs, and the rest larger inverters have 4. We recommend a number 12 gauge copper for the positive and negative conductors. As I mentioned earlier, don't forget to crimp the PV terminals to the wires. Please make sure to validate string voltage and polarity. Although the inverter has reverse polarity protection, it is always best practice to check before installing. Now let's move into the different battery connections. But remember that this inverter is what we call battery ready, which means that you might be commissioning this inverter without battery. If you are using AES inverter as PV only, then skip this part of the connection. For the electrical connection, please make sure that the battery main breaker is off before connecting the positive and negative wire. Follow the wiring connections for the battery directly from the battery manual. Link's battery already has a built-in 50 amp breaker DC included. You will need to run a number 6 THHN or THWN-2 or similar copper wire from the positive and the negative wire terminals to the inverter. Please double check the polarity of the conductors because the fuses you see in this photo will blow if you cross these wires. You also need to bring the ground conductor from Link's batteries to the inverter wiring compartment. The next step in the battery connection is the communication wires. For Link's batteries, connection is an RJ45 to COM port 1. Don't forget to install the terminator on the COM 2 of Link's battery. On the other side, or inverter wire, you're going to use the 2-pin terminal included, and you're going to connect to pin 1 and pin 2, which is the CAN 1 connection. Also, these inverter series are compatible with the LG battery and BYD battery. For these batteries, the communication wire connections are different than the Links, so please make sure you follow the specific instructions from the manufacturer. Once we get through the commissioning part of this training, I will show you how easy you can check if the communication has been established between the battery and the inverter. Lastly, we move to the AC side. On the AC side, you will need to install an overcurrent protection device. This breaker is not included. The table on the screen is also included in the installation manual. Use it as a recommendation only because remember, the breaker is sized based on the size of the conductor that you're installing. Also, keep in mind that if you are using power limiting to prevent a main panel upgrade, the breaker will not match the table on the screen. The AC wiring terminal will accept from a number 8 to a 10. Since we are talking about AC side, it is worth mentioning that this inverter series was designed to connect to 120 to 40 volts with a neutral, each phase at 180 degrees. The UL version inverters can adjust voltage and frequency as needed. Please refer to the installation manual for more information. The ATX or auto transformer is required if you are going to use this inverter series to back up loads during a power outage. Do not attempt to operate AES or AVP without ATX. The ATX has its own enclosure and is most cases installed right under the inverter. If you look at the AC wiring connections, the far left L1, neutral, and L2 are intended for the ATX and are labeled on the plastic cover. You will also need to connect communications wires using the included 2-pin connector to the left of L1, highlighted on the screen by the red arrow. The output or backup side of these inverters are in the middle of the wiring block. Please follow the order for the neutral, L1, and L2 as shown on the template. The terminal will accept from a number 8 to a 10 copper wire. From here, you will need to separate to an essential load panel, which is the inverter output breaker based on the size of the inverter. Essential load panel or output breakers are not included. I have removed the plastic cover from the photo, but remember, this is in most cases not necessary. As I mentioned earlier, the rapid shutdown module is built in from the factory. We offer options from Tigo, APS, and soon to launch our GoodWe transmitter. For all of these, you have to specify which you prefer from the distributor. Note that the PV rapid shutdown system must be sourced separately. If you are installing this inverter on a site that doesn't require rapid shutdown, you will need to disable the transmitter. In this case, all you need to do is disconnect the 12-volt power supply to the transmitter. Once you have completed the wiring to the inverter, the next step is to start the commissioning. Note that the inverter only has LED indicators. All configuration and monitor will be done via the apps. In case you have a question on the LEDs, this table is included on the manual. Additionally, on the left side of the inverter, you will find a label with this information. The GM K120 meter is included on these models, and it can be helpful by providing additional information to the system owner, such as load monitoring. The GM K120 is a revenue grade. You can locate a certification to ANSI standard on our website. The CTs should be installed on the main service panel before all of the loads. Please note the position highlighted by the red arrow. Note that if the CTs do not reach the main panel, there are a couple of ways to extend them. Please contact our after-sales support to get more information. Other uses for the meter in regions where solar power export is regulated or not allowed. This is known in the industry as zero cell, but we call it power limiting. Another use for the meter is when you have a small main but cannot do an upgrade. You can then limit the export power of the inverter to meet the limited size of the main entrance. In the next sections, I'm going to be talking about AES and AVP commissioning and monitoring. During the commissioning, you will connect to the inverter's Wi-Fi with SolarGo app. But for permanent monitoring, you will need to connect the inverter to the customer's internet. For this, you will need to evaluate the type of internet connection, wireless or wire, based on the installation location of the inverter and the home internet router. Note the distance limits between the inverter and the home router may vary based on the building material or other obstructions. But if the internet is weak, you can also look for internet extenders. If after evaluating you determine that wireless will not be a stable solution for this installation, you also have the option of LAN or wire connection. Another alternative is our 4G. However, the data plan is not included. There are two mobile apps. One is SolarGo. This one will help you through the commissioning process while you are in front of the inverter. If you haven't done it already, please go ahead and download SolarGo from your app store. The other one is SEMS app. I also recommend that you download and register with SEMS app now. This way, if you need to contact our support team, they will be able to assist you remotely with any configuration changes, as they will require that your system is on SEMS to access control. There are several sequences of powering up. I am going to go through one alternative. First, make sure you have installed the Wi-Fi dongle. Turn on the AC side or grid side first. Second, turn the batteries. You should see the Wi-Fi LED on the inverter blink 2 times. Open your connections on your phone and select Wi-Fi. Here you will see the network name Solar-Wi-Fi followed by the serial number of this inverter. If you are commissioning several inverters at the same time, make sure you pick the right inverter based on the serial number. Now open SolarGo. It will first search for the nearby device. This could take a few seconds. Then the inverter should appear with a Wi-Fi connection. Click on the Solar Wi-Fi and the inverter serial number. From the main screen, click on the bottom right settings, select Basic Settings, and enter the installer password as you see on the screen, GoodWe 2010. For AES and ASB version, the most common setting is safety code. By default, comes from the factory set to US 240 volts AC. If you need to change the grid code, then click on the USA 240 volts AC default and select. Once you're selected, then click Save. Once you're back to the safety code, then click Next. Now you are on the working modes. Select the working modes as applicable for this installation. Now you're going to be on the battery models. Here the inverter will automatically detect the battery connected. As you see on the screen, it automatically recognizes our Lynx FH batteries. If you're getting to this step and the inverter doesn't automatically recognize the batteries from the list, you need to troubleshoot the batteries. First, start by checking if the battery breaker is closed. If you're using Lynx batteries, did you remember the battery terminal resistor on COM2? Are your communication wires connected on the correct port for the type batteries? Remember that the GoodWe Lynx and the BYD and LG have different connection points. Next, if you are not going to use CCTs, you simply skip the steps, or if you are using them, then you need to enable by clicking yes. Now you will notice a waiting for test message and then click exit to finish. Lastly, you will need to connect the inverter to the home internet. The reason for leaving to the last step is that the inverter will automatically look for a firmware update available and will start the update. Ideally, you have completed all of the other steps of the commissioning and you are not required to wait for the firmware update. From the settings, click on Communication Settings and then Network Settings. Click on the network name and enter your customer's password. In the next section, I will show you the SolarGo process directly on the app. This is a repeat of the previous section, so feel free to skip if you don't need it. This video also from SolarGo on setting up power limiting. Just as the one before, feel free to skip if you don't need it. There is another way to monitor this inverter using SEMS app or a browser remotely. If you are registered as a single user, you will only be able to monitor this single inverter. However, you might want to see all of the GoodWe installations at once in a dashboard. After completing this training, you can request the organization account code. We also have a video on how to use SEMS Cloud Portal. I will include a link below. Thank you for your valuable time and interest in GoodWe solar products. If you have any follow-up technical questions, I will be more than happy to assist you. Please feel free to get in touch with me directly. Also, if you would like to get a certificate of completion, please email me at gwus.qsp@goodwe.com. Include your full name as you would like it to appear on the certificate, company name, address, and phone number. Additionally, if you would like to receive a SEMS organization code, you can contact our tech support directly at 888-418-0775 or service.us@goodwe.com.